Welcome to User Friendly 2.0 with host Bill Sikkens, Technology Architect.
And this is User Friendly 2.0. I am your host, Bill Sikkens. Joining me, my co-host, Gretchen. Bill, welcome to this week's show. Welcome to August.
Hello there, and it's really smoky.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, up here in the Pacific Northwest, we're getting the smoke from the forest fires, and it has been definitely yucky. The smoke's one thing, but what really I don't like about that is, number one, we're losing the forest. This is burning in an area by a ski lodge. It's a very picturesque area. And can you imagine how many animals are burned to death and birds and things like that because of just all this going on? And I know Spokane, Washington, they're really having some trouble up there because it sounds like an arsonist started a huge fire and has burned over 700 homes in the city. You know,
it's up to 700 now?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And these type of things are just, you know, at least the one from my understanding that's we're dealing with here in Oregon was lightning caused. So, you know, but it's better than an arson, but it's still not good. So
no.
I don't know. I just give my strongest support and wishes and positive energy to our firefighters and other responders that are dealing with this.
Yeah.
Because I know it's very difficult. They don't have the budgets they need to in a lot of cases. And even if they did, it's not an easy job. So more power to them. All right. Well, on that positive note,
hey, maybe we need Cyberhawk.
Yeah, we need Cyberhawk. We actually need to talk about that a little bit too, upcoming episodes, because we're getting a lot of questions on it. Gretchen, people are reading your book.
Oh, well, that's cool. I hope they're having fun.
I think we need to put you on a hot seat interview because you're getting a lot of questions about it. So we'll compile those. All right, what do we have in the news this week?
Well, NASA has a virtual guest program.
Yeah, and this is kind of cool. So, you know, a lot of times you watch what NASA's doing, you're a member of the media, or you're at a location where they're doing an event like launching something or whatever the case may be. They do a lot more than just that. But a lot of people can't travel and are not members of the media, believe it or not. So they've been offering a program that's actually not a new program, but it seems like a lot of people don't necessarily know about this. This has been available since 2020. So it'll be 6 years now. And with 3 million registrations, over 70 events, it is something that word's getting out there. And what this actually is a virtual guest program. So you go on and it's free, you sign up and you get the mission background, latest updates, any schedule changes, educational materials, behind the scenes information, links to live streams, and so on. So it would be, I think, more impressive to actually be at an event, but for most of us that can't do that, this gives you a way to attend virtually where you get a pretty similar experience and a chance to see things that you wouldn't otherwise see. So this took off during COVID-19 and has really been something ever since then. And it's NASA-virtual-guest program. So NASA does, I can say this, nasa.gov/NASA-virtual-guest-program. And that's how you get to it.
Now say that 3 times really fast.
I don't think so. And not because I can't, but we just don't have the time in this segment. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right.
The U.S. is investigating if Iran was behind a cyber attack on a water system in 7 states, including Minnesota.
Yeah, and I am led to understand this is up to 12 states now. But whatever the case may be, I know in Minnesota alone it was 30 different water systems within that one state over a 48-hour period. The suspects on this is Iran-led cyber attacks. And the question becomes on this, a couple of things as to why this would be the case. Well, number one, obviously water is important. And what they're trying to do is get in and damage the water distribution system, either by shutting it down or doing things like putting incorrect chemicals in the water and poisoning people. There's a lot of different bad things that they could do with this. And one of the reasons this is being targeted is because a lot of municipalities have older control systems on their water systems. So these type of things are a little easier to hack. They have limited cybersecurity budgets, so they don't have the greatest protection against it. And what ends up happening is you have equipment that's connected directly to the internet that wasn't originally designed for that, and certainly not the needs of today to keep it secure. So we've been seeing a lot of attacks on infrastructure, hospital, energy grids, pipelines, telecommunications, and so on, and now water systems. So the idea of this type of a thing is we do need to be cautious. I think we're actually doing pretty good, knock on wood, or touch wood, as those over the pond would say, because we're in a situation where this has been going on and yet we have not seen a major problem. That doesn't mean it won't happen, but so far so good. But vigilance is important. And this is why, from our own standpoint, make sure your stuff is updated. Do the updates, even though sometimes they're a pain, because that's one of the best ways you can keep your own system safe. And hopefully our leaders will hear that and do the same thing with their systems if they're not already.
All right. In the wake of Doomsday, which sounds like an interesting transition, Marvel announces new universe.
So, okay, I'm glad this is science fiction and not reality.
Yeah.
So Marvel is launching an entirely new universe, sort of, according to their press release. And Marvel and Webtoon have announced a line of original digital-first comics that are designed specifically for smartphones. So basically what's happening here is they're not just scanning comic books, which is what that sounded like to me, but they are doing this from the ground up to do Webtoon's signature vertical scrolling format, which they have pioneered to make these things work well on phones. So this isn't replacing Marvel Comics. It's opening a front door to a different audience, basically.
Yeah.
So something
I don't think I'd like that. It would be so tiny, and the artists go through all that trouble to draw the artwork. I want to be able to see it and enjoy it.
Well, the thing of it is you're still going to have this on this, and from what I understand, it's still going to remain. But Marvel's been pretty good about real artists, not AI, that kind of thing. So they're still going to be doing that. It's just going to be a digital format of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still seeing art. You're still seeing the same thing you would in the comic books. It's just on your phone screen, and it's designed so that you can scroll it instead of having to turn pages. So, the one thing about it I will say is this, is a lot of the younger generation doesn't go to the comic book shop anymore. They may not even be available in their areas. A lot has changed. So it's a way to be able to experience comic books and this type of thing without, being denied that because you can't get a physical copy. And one of the other things that I think is going to be interesting on this is I think this will upsell the comic books too, because somebody interested in this would go to Amazon or some other, Barnes & Noble or whatever and buy them if they would know about them. So the first one that's going to be on this, or I don't know the first one, but one of the ones that they're announcing is going to be Deadpool. So I'm going to find it interesting. I will try it out and see what it is and report back.
Data center approvals in Texas halted until audits completed.
So this is an interesting thing, and one that doesn't shock me because there's been a lot of concern about this. So the Texas Tribune is reporting on this. Paul Cobbler wrote it. And basically what's going on here is due to the public backlash of the rapid build-out of data centers, they're doing a stop on them until regulatory agencies can audit proposed data centers seeking connections with the state electrical grid, water, and other things. So they haven't announced how long this is going to take or any of the other details yet, but basically what's going on here, and not just in Texas, but a lot of places, is data centers always have used a lot of power. With AI, they're really using a lot of power now to the point that it's causing problems where the normal subscriber to an electrical grid, say in your town, doesn't always have electricity dependably because the data center is taking so much of it up. And it's cooling, AI, and a number of other things that are going on here. Power is important. Microsoft announced a while back that they are buying a nuclear reactor and restarting it to power their data centers. So that just goes to show you the scope of what is going on here. And
I would think that with those big, huge buildings, they put solar panels and those the little windmills on the buildings. Why don't they?
You're asking me that? I'm not in charge of building these buildings. No.
Okay, because to me that seems like a no-brainer.
Actually, Gretchen, answer your question. In a lot of cases, alternative energy is being used as part of it, but it does not generate enough power to be able to cover the entire use of a data center. It just doesn't.
Of course not. I was just thinking it might help.
So it's an augmentation. And it definitely is an augmentation. One of the other things, too, is data centers use water. A little bit of an aside to this specific topic. We're seeing them build out data center in places like Arizona and the Sonora Desert, which seems a little strange to me on that front, too, because, while you could get a lot of power from solar, certainly, where are you going to get the water? So these are problems. We all use these data centers. Everybody, right now, you're using a data center listening to our show. It's just the way the world works now. But on the same token, hopefully this will create some motivation for developers to figure out a way to use less energy. And actually, I'm seeing that with some of the new AI builds and stuff, topic to talk about later, that they're engineering now using AI to back this up a little bit. So I think there's going to be a lot of different approaches to this, but certainly the state putting a moratorium on it makes sense, because I don't know about you, but I like to know that when I hit the light switch, the lights are going to come on and my power is not being used somewhere else that I still have to pay for. So.
Oh boy. Are pepper spray drones headed for schools?
So this is a funny thing. This was an Instagram video, Gretchen, I know you found and sent over. And
yeah.
I'm looking at this, and a lot of what you find on social media, let's just say, needs to be fact checked. And there's this video that has drones flying through classrooms, breaking through windows, looking like some of the technology that
hitting a mannequin.
Yeah, exactly. And you're kind of going, okay, I think, Bill, before we started recording, you made the comment, what could go wrong, right? So there is truth to this story, but it's not quite like that, fortunately, in my opinion. But what they are looking at doing is having drones that can be remotely operated, so they're not autonomous either, that can be used in the event of active shooter situations and other threats like that to our schools. So when this happens, they can send one of these drones into the classroom and try to nullify the shooter situation. I can see where that would be of an extreme benefit, because it takes people out of harm's way, hopefully takes our kids out of harm's way when these things happen. And the other side of it is deterrents are a big deal. So you're looking at a situation here that if a program like this was successful, maybe it'll cut back on the shooter situation a little bit too. So there is a place for this type of thing, but not quite what was being promoted in that Instagram video. It looked like something out of sci-fi, and I'm glad that's where that's remaining. But I can see a project like this being something that would be something that was usable. So some of the backstory on it: a company in Texas called Campus Guardian Angel is rolling out the pilot program for this. They're trying it out in some schools in Florida, Georgia, and Colorado. Again, the drones are remotely operated by trained human pilots, not autonomous AI making its own decisions. They're intended only for active shooter situations, and they can use a combination of video, sirens, flashing lights, pepper gel, and as a last resort, physically ramming into the attacker to slow them down until police arrive. Now, being said that, having something like this in the schools based on the video would have bad things happen. On the flip side, if you have someone in the school threatening our students, I think using whatever is needed to nullify that, up to and including deadly force, is completely appropriate. So having it from that standpoint makes sense, as long as there's a human operator actually operating the drone, which there is. So.
Well, talking about possible robots, the FCC to ban on foreign-made robots, including robot vacuums.
So we talked about this a little bit last week on the ban, but this is where sometimes I think our leaders need to think things through a little bit, but there actually is some use for this, and I understand where they're coming from. So originally, the way that this was announced to the media was that it was humanoid robots, okay? So whatever your opinion may be on that, that's what they were talking about. But however, it's a little bit more than that, because the way it's worded is that the FCC has made this through some expansion in some of the original bill, that it's now advanced robotic devices. So that isn't just humanoid robots. It includes many of the robot vacuums, robotic lawnmowers, and other things that we use every day. So basically, if you already own a robotic vacuum or related, nothing changes. Your Roomba is not going to stop working, although it might because of the problems with the company. But the actual FCC controls here are not affecting that. It's future-made models. And why they're doing this is not that the FCC is too concerned about the state of your carpet, which is fortunate, but it's more about what the devices can do. So modern robotic vacuums, just to use that as an example, have multiple cameras, microphones on some models, LiDAR mapping systems for your house, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity, detailed floor plans of your home with cloud connectivity. Bill, what could possibly go wrong there?
They're worried about spying then.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
And it is, in my opinion, a valid concern.
Well, you could have predators take over these little vacuums and spy on women and children and men, Yeah. You walk around your house, you could be in your underwear or less, and that could be bad.
Well, and that being one thing, but the other side of this too is, and I've cited this before, but a number of years ago, I was involved in a thing where we were doing some testing on really what could the bad guys do with the information that's out there. Now, this was done prior COVID, so about 2019.
I remember this story.
Yeah, prior to a lot of the technology we have now. And with that, it was still possible using social media and information from a phone to figure out a minor child's where she was at all times, where her classroom was in her school, where her bedroom was in her house, that kind of a thing, which is just downright scary. Now, fast forward to 2026, again, this technology has moved in a direction that, like you talk about cameras in your house and these kind of things, and this stuff is being attacked. And we have had some issues over the years of bad guys, bad actors getting into in-home security cameras and other things and monitoring people and doing all kinds of other really creepy stuff. So you take it a step further and look at kind of what's going on with our technology now. This does make sense to try to reel this in and get some regulation in place to just make sure our things are secure. Now, that being said, one of the questions that we get asked all the time, and one of the ones that I unfortunately can't really answer for obvious reasons, is how do you hack? Okay. But it is interesting to look at this from a standpoint of what this kind of thing means. So I did a little checking earlier this year. I'm going to be covering this on a special edition episode we're going to be doing this fall on hacking. And I'm not going to teach you how to hack, so don't get ramped up for that. But we are going to talk about some of the things that can be done with it. And I got a few routers and cameras and things off of Amazon and some other places like that. Some of the Chinese sites, just to see what we were absolutely dealing with here. And the software on some of these things was so bad that it is possible very easily. I don't even know if it'd be called hacking. The system just does not have security. And you can go on and set passwords and do all that you want, and it just simply doesn't matter, So it is definitely a concern. I can see where this is something that they really should dial back on. On the flip side, name brands and some of the better quality technology like this, like your Ring and other such things, do seem to be reasonably secure. Now, I say that with a standpoint that anything can be hacked. So the better you do your security, the less likely it is. But there you are, What are you guys' opinion on this? Are you concerned about this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am now.
Well,
yeah.
I don't think we need to be paranoid about it, but I do think there are some things where you get what you pay for. And in this particular set of circumstances, it is important to make sure you get reputable equipment when you do this. I have cameras in my house because I have a senior mother and I need to be able to know that she's okay,
I do the same thing, but I also make sure that they're not pointed in areas where people need to remain private.
Yeah, well, I do the same thing. But there's still a camera at the top of my stairs, and it needs to be there,
Yeah.
And I certainly wouldn't want some creepy weirdo, or worse, a state actor of some kind looking in on that camera. I just wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, boy. Okay, here's another thing going on, and I'm not exactly sure where this one's going. Kitchen appliance sold at Amazon, Home Depot, recalled after 1 death and 34 fires. So what's going on here?
Well, what's going on is if you have this appliance, you should stop using it.
Duh.
So the manufacturer of this is Gallons, Galanz. I'm probably mispronouncing that. The product is called Retro Refrigerators, and looking at the picture, they're actually kind of cool. About 121,680 of these have been sold. Mm-hmm. And what happened is the internal electrical components can short circuit and ignite. That's not something you want with your refrigerator or anything else.
No.
So if you have one
How
of these,
retro are the components? Did they go to the junkyard?
I think they would have done better with that. I think they got the cheapest components they could find. This is my opinion, but from looking at this stuff, got the cheapest components they could find, cobbled it together, made the device, and it's not handling the power properly because what's in there is not designed to be able to handle the power that's going through it. And there's a device in electronics, I'll go down this rabbit hole a little bit, called a MOSFET, or a transistor that control turning motors on and off, right? It's a switch. And I've seen this in a lot of things where they're using a device that's not rated for the power consumption that's required. Now, if you do this on a low voltage device, something that runs on batteries, that type of a thing, that's going to happen is the device will stop working when the transistor or related item burns out. But if you're running mains voltage, 110 here in the States and other parts of the world, 220 through that, it will ignite because it overheats, and that's a bad thing when it causes a fire. So if you have one of these devices, check with Amazon or Home Depot, that's where they were sold, or check with the manufacturer's website or the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission to find out if yours has been recalled and what to do about it. I believe they are refunding the money, but again, this may be different depending on what the specific case is. I don't know if there's a fix available for them, but definitely something. Please be careful and please check it out. So that being said, let's talk about some changes in technology. And this is one that we got a number of questions in about, and it's kind of an interesting topic because it affects pretty much all of us. Mm-hmm. And that's a technology that most of us have probably used all of our life, if not most of it, depending on your generation. It's something that's been out there since the 70s, and that's UPC barcodes. So when you go to a grocery store or a Target or whatever, Walmart, any place like that, there's a barcode. And when you go to pay for the item at the self-check, you scan the barcode. If you still have a store where they actually have people that will do that for you, the checker will scan it, but that is how it works. And what this does is it rings up the item so that the checker's not manually entering the amount, so there's not an error on that end, or worse yet, it would never happen, but if that was manual in this day and age, I have a feeling that it could be possible that sometimes they would undercharge for their friends, stuff like that. So it makes it automatic. And this has been a situation. So 5 decades, we've all seen them.
Yeah.
What's happening? Are they going away? They're being replaced. Okay. And we're getting something new. So you're still going to be able to go to the self-check and scan your stuff out. But it's being swapped out for basically a QR code. First scan happened in 1974, by the way, so that gives you an idea of it. Wiggly's Juicy Fruit Gum was the first item scanned. So just a little bit of information on that.
Okay.
But that being said, what we've got going on here is the new codes can handle a lot more information. And we were just talking about product recalls. This is one of the things. When you scan your item, it will know what the lot number is that came from, where it came from, if it's been recalled, if it's a food item, if it's expired, or there's a problem like that, and automatically be able to tell you. And because we can scan QR codes with our phone, if you have a device that's questionable or a product that's questionable, you can scan the code after you buy it and see if there's a recall, that kind of a thing. And there's a lot more information that this will be able to track for the retailers, for the point of sale systems, and that kind of a thing. But it's next year, my understanding, when these are going to be phased in. We'll be seeing both codes side by side for a while until things are upgraded. But at the end of the day, that's what's happening. All right, we're about out of time for this segment. Join us for our next segment. We're going to be talking about old programming languages. This is User Friendly 2.0. We'll be back after the break.
Have you seen him? He's from the future. He's got a really big computer. And he uses it every day. And he uses it in every way. What's he using for? I'm not that sure because it uses future technology.
Welcome back. This is User Friendly 2.0. Check out our website. Userfriendly.show is your one stop for questions, comments, back episodes, and everything else user-friendly. Check us out at userfriendly.show. So we talk technology a lot here, being that this is a technology and pop culture show. That does make sense. And one of the things we do look at is where technology has come from. And in coming weeks, we're going to be covering some of that in a little more detail, history on things based on a lot of the questions and comments you've sent in. And this week, we'd like to invite a guest who is going to be joining us here in a minute, who's going to be talking about COBOL. Now, for people of my generation, we've heard of this language, COBOL, Fortran. These were the standard languages back in the 1970s and 80s. And fast forward ahead to 2026, we're here using a lot more modern languages in some cases, but a lot of things still run on these old mini computers, mainframes, and that type of thing that need to be migrated over. The systems work pretty well, but the problem is that in a lot of cases, you can't get the parts anymore. You can't get support on something made in the 70s. I can see that being a problem. But you're dealing with a situation where not only is the language, COBOL, that it's in, completely different from anything we're dealing with now, so is the platform. You might have a database that you need to move over, and it's not like you do it now where you export it. You have to do a lot of different things. Even the hardware is different. So joining us today is our guest who is going to be speaking to this a little bit and some of the things that they're doing to be able to solve this problem. And welcome to User Friendly. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Thank you so much. My name is Kranti Guduru. I do have 19 plus years of industry experience on different components. That includes different technologies, different flavors, but my area of specialization is application modernization. That is, when we talk about application modernization, that is end to end. We're not sticking to the one single layer here. And I work with multi-million companies, and I would say that Fortune 500 or Fortune 10 companies as well. I supported a lot of them on the different products. It's product based and also consulting firms. I did a lot of assessments for some of the projects, friendly projects as well.
Let's dive into modernization. I know one of the things that you know a little bit about is our old friend COBOL. And this comes up sometimes in a history class, but I also know I worked for a bank for a while. This is still widely just deployed. I mean, you know, you see it all over the place, but it's a language that it's becoming harder and harder to find support for. Tell us a little bit about that and what it would take to modernize that kind of a system.
Yeah, COBOL is, everybody knew the COBOL is really the complicated the language. I would say that because there are less experts which are right now, because most of the experts who develop this, who own this, who written this code, they already retired and they are going to get retired soon. So that is the opportunity, I would say, that where we need to get going and see how to, first you need to understand this, to what level the dependencies are on this COBOL language, they develop the application. And then you need to work reverse. You need to do kind of a reverse engineering where you need to understand dependencies, integrations, how the application flow is working on. What are some of the things which you cannot modernize, but you have to rewrite it, redo it? So I would start from that point when we talk more about the COBOL modernization. So many of the clients or many of the consultants, exactly that's where they're going to miss it. When they say COBOL conversion or the modernization, they focus solely on this code and they never mind about the dependencies, integration, years of efforts which the experts with they develop in order that application to function. So that ecosystem being missed when somebody get themselves involved in this modernization effort. So that part is really critical for us to get going. Not only the code. That's where I'll start from step one.
So
Now,
it sounds like it's easy for clients to overlook the complications and the years of changes that have been done to the software, or how the software talks to other attributes. So is
That's a
that
good
what's going
catch.
on?
Yeah, that's right. Because what happens is, imagine that COBOL was application was developed in 1970s sometime around, and right now it's almost like we are talking about nearly 40 years. Somebody already joined, they aged out, they retired, and somebody new joined. They don't even know the roots of the application, how that application being developed, on what basis. Yeah, well, they can say yes, this is COBOL, but if something breaks, no, they're not going to fix it because they don't have those documentation. Because if we, I, in my experience, there are a lot of scenarios we don't have enough documentation to go back to the roots and say, hey, this is how it built, and this is what it is. Now let's go and fix that. Now, lack of documentation also impacts the understanding of the application or troubleshooting the issue. So your point is absolutely right. They're going to miss a lot of components around here when they look into this modernization effort, or before the modernization effort, if something happened, they don't even know what's going on. So this is a high risk when we talk about the banking sector, insurance, and also defense system. There's a lot going on with it. If something they cannot troubleshoot it, that's it. They're not going to come out from that scenario, and it's going to be a huge impact.
Now you talk about, I think you said 800 billion lines of COBOL code still exist out there. What industries do you see this in? I know banking's one of them, but that can't be the only one.
Banking, defense, insurance companies, all these companies which exist from almost decades, they do have this mainframe in their DNA. And this DNA, we have to shift and lift. Sometimes it is lift and shift. Sometimes you need to rewrite most of the time. So again, this again falls under the lack of documentation, and also the kind of approach which we would like to pick. It depends on the bits and pieces information which as part of requirements we gather. So yes, there are 800 plus, I would say that more than.
I mean,
So this
it's
sounds like
amazing.
it could be stressful, especially if you're thinking about, the banking industry where you could screw up records and people lose their money, or if you're talking defense department, oh gosh, what could go wrong there?
Exactly, it's high stressful because, as I said, the ecosystem. Understanding somebody saying yes, I'm expert in this. I would say that okay, did you go through the ecosystem? Because in ecosystem, these are all something which are bits and pieces puzzles. It's not like you bought an Apple phone and now you have some Apple charger or something. No, it's not like that. It's not organized. It's more of bits and pieces, a puzzle where you need to form that as an ecosystem. You need to understand it, and then once you understand, then you need to map it to the modern technologies or modern hardware, modern platform. What is the solution you want to bring it on the table? So that's itself we call as a discovery period, and which actually consumes a lot of time. Imagine that your project signed up for 2 years, almost like 4 months, 5 months sometimes. You need to spend on the discovery period itself. Otherwise, if this discovery period is something, if you miss, then whatever you do, it will not get connected end of the day. You will end up with a problem. You'll end up with a lot of issues because nowadays there are so many companies who are working with a modernization effort, but how many companies are being successful? That's very important point which we need to understand, because I know this is a multi I would say that hundreds of thousands of dollars when somebody is coming up and saying, hey, I'm going to do this project for you. But how many companies are thorough with that process? How many people are experts in this area? That's very important.
Well, yeah, you would definitely want someone to know what they're doing. And how do you figure that out? Because, even in modern programming, there's a lot of really good programmers, but there are a few that, if you get involved with them, you're never going to have a finished project or worse. What are some of the things, pitfalls people can look at, ways that people can figure out how to find somebody to work with?
Yeah. So uh, two things here. One thing is, the first thing is the background of what were the some of the projects which they completed. That is the very first thing. And second thing is what level of the code base or a data conversion they participated in it. Because these two are two pillars I would call that as for the mainframe modernization. Any of the pillar they don't have enough expertise, then that would be very hard to make sure the project go live successfully. And also the requirement phase, as I discussed earlier. So the discovery period that we call it as, that discovery period. What is their experience in the discovery period? How are they going to get requirements out? Believe me when I say this, even at the client side, most of them they don't even know there are certain critical items. They don't have documentation. They don't. If I ask you, okay, how this application, how this code is supporting this feature, they say no, we don't know that because we don't have documentation. It is working. We are working with it. That's why we need some expertise to walk in, help us move this code from the mainframe to the latest technologies. That's where we struck. That's so many times I heard that answer from client team especially. Uh, so they're helpless. In one way, I would say that they're helpless. They need some help on this one as well.
Well, and your computer platform can be your business. In a lot of cases, it is. And, you kind of touched upon this a little earlier, but I want to ask a little bit more about it because we're not talking, upgrading from Windows 8 to Windows 10. You're dealing with 40, 50-year-old systems, which means the hardware is completely different. None of the standardizations are there. It's not like you can put a flash drive in it or even, I mean, in those days, copying data between them was a bit of a challenge. How do you even get in if you have something with like a large database and that type of thing? Is there a process in place to be able to do that, to come from a mainframe to modern, cloud hosting or whatever it is you might be doing? And how does that work?
So I was repetitively I was using the discovery period, right? In the discovery period, you will understand. For example, the client right now in the mainframe is DB2, and then they wanted to go on Java. From Java, they want to jump on the modern platforms. They can go on the Oracle, they can go on the DB2 LUW, they can go on the SQL Server. Again, the choice of going on those platforms depends on the conversion part, the code which you are getting from the mainframe. If your mainframe code is okay, let me put it in this way. If you want to go to from DB2 mainframe to DB2 LUW in AWS EC2 instance, most of the time it is you will do is a lift and shift, and some part of the code you will rewrite it, but not everything. But if you want to go from your mainframe to the Oracle or a SQL Server platform, there are certain elements which will be involved, like you need to do a lot of rewriting, and also how your application will function. What is that you're looking at it? So how many tables you are bringing on table, how much data you are bringing onto table, what effort you are going to keep to do a code rewriting, or you're going to just lift and shift it. When you lift and shift it, will your will your application functions as it is functioning in mainframe once it reaches its destination in DB2 LUW? So these are all the components which you need to think. And also there is a lot of automation nowadays we are doing in it. Earlier that was everything is manual, but right now since last few years, I would say that not couple of years, few years, we started working on a lot of automation. We developed certain utilities which will help us converting the code into the natural into the Java, and from Java that is going to convert into the SQLs. Those SQLs you will be deploying in the your target. It can be DB2 or it can be Oracle. So you're going to deploy them in the your database layer. So this is the end to end on a very high level. I would say that this is how you do that. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
wow, you're talking just data. What happens if your software is actually talking to hardware that's programmed with old stuff? And if you don't realize that, that could be really bad.
I'll give you one. Let me give one example. In one of the recent
Okay.
projects, what happened is the mainframe, they do have this DB2, and then we almost for the actual project divided into two phases. So the first phase, we have only two applications we want to bring as part of the testing, and the client want to see how this is going to happen because it's almost like 40 plus years. They never touched about, moving away from that mainframe or anything because they're really worried. And this is a federal client, and they don't want to do anything to it unless it is very much proven. So the case is here, there are we are successful in getting the data offboarded from the mainframe, but there are certain tables which we cannot do that. Now the question is, if you are unable to bring the complete data out of that mainframe, then you will not call that as a complete migration. So where I'm coming from is there will be a tailor-made solutions for everything in the application modernization area. So what we done is we worked with another vendor. They're called as a Rocket, and they do this kind of a replication between any. They developed a replication tool between any source to any target. So what we have done is we started replicating the data from mainframe to the target Oracle instead of copying everything, moving out everything. In this way, we replicated in it's a live replication. We did it for almost 75ish days, and then we we had this breakpoint, which means that a cutover on a weekend we did a cutover, and the application connected to the Oracle point here. So why I'm bringing this is really, really hard because the application is so much optimized to the mainframe. And if you all of a sudden, if you want to bring it and attach it to the different target, modernized platforms, we face a lot of challenges, and we learned a lot. We developed a lot of tailor-made solutions, like the one which this is the one, a simple example which I explained. It's not. I would say it's not an easy task.
I'm going to ask about an example because this was something that I had experience with. It was a government project, and this was a few years ago, and they were on a mainframe COBOL type setup like what we've been talking about. And their solution, I didn't work with the conversion, and I'm glad I didn't because I still have hair. I don't think I would have if I had been involved in what they were doing. Because what they were trying to do was say, okay, we're going to replicate the mainframe in a virtual host on a new environment. And they set it up, but they never did get it to work. And I think it's what you were saying is it's tied to the hardware in some way. Have you ever seen something like that work, or is it always where you do have to actually convert it over to something modern?
So, what is that point which you think a little bit tough in this situation or not able to comprehend what went there? I would like you to repeat that one more time for me so that I can put my mind there and answer your question. Just
Oh,
repeat that.
absolutely.
What is?
Absolutely. No. So what was going on is they had the legacy system, and they didn't really want to get into rewriting the actual COBOL software.
Okay.
So what they wanted, and there was a hardware failure part of this that they couldn't fix. So they
Okay.
tried to recreate the original mainframe virtually.
Oh, okay. Got
And
it.
like I said, that didn't work too well.
No, no. So there are certain tools right now. Most of the huge companies they developed in-house. What they're going to do is they're going to bring the data into their utility, into their tool, and then that tool will actually do this conversion into the different whatever your target is. But end of the day, if your target is SQL Server, Oracle, or if you're DB2, it will develop the sequels where you need to go ahead and deploy those even. Right now, the automation reached to a certain extent, to third extent that all you have to do is build the pipeline. The data will travel through the pipeline to the staging, and from staging, the conversion will happen, and from there, the data will use another pipeline which will send it to the database. Now, the human intervention is very much required because the character set issues or the varchar issues. There are a lot of issues which will jump into the picture. You need to sort that out, and then you will correct the data. You will correct those lens, columns, and everything, and then you will send it to the target. Yeah, there are
Okay,
so
yeah.
many tailor-made options right now because this is something each and every consulting company would like to move ahead and challenge this projects. But thing is, this will definitely definitely it will take decades for all the existing organizations to move away from the mainframe. It's not going to happen immediately in next 5-6 years. This has got a great life who is doing this modernization.
So is your client base strictly people doing conversions?
um, so conversions as well as rewriting as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, that sounds good. So tell us, how does somebody get a hold of you?
Okay, so when you say somebody get hold of me, since I work with I'm not a freelancer, I'm working with an organization. So it's a
Mhm.
top, I would say it's a top fourth organization in this world,
Right.
consulting firm. So um, the moment we have this RFEs and all those we go ahead and give this presentation to the client. Before to that, we understand what is their pain area, why is that they're looking for this opportunity to move away from the mainframe. and then we'll spend more time to articulate and ensure that we give them a very good presentation saying that, hey, this is your problem, this is what we want to do, or these are the multiple approaches, talking about the budget and all those things. So that's how the flow is. So that's how somebody can catch hold of a person who is working for this kind of data conversion and data rewriting, application modernization.
I mean, it sounds amazing. Is there anything else you want to tell us?
I would say that this has got a great future right now. Whoever would like to invest there, learning things, because day in, day out, everybody is on AI. I would agree, yes, you need to be on, but at the same time, you're looking at a decade future here. So I'm sure that if somebody really wants to invest on, because this is not particularly about the core, every component is involved in this. You talk about hardware, you talk about code, you talk about AI, you talk about logical thinking, how you would like to tailor the solution, because every solution cannot be applied to the companies which are approaching us for this kind of a modernization efforts. So it gives immense, I would say, experience, as well as you need to be more you need to be more importantly. I would say that logical thinking is plays a vital role. Otherwise, if you say that, okay, this is a solution I implement in XYZ company, I will implement 1, 2, 3. No, it's not going to happen. And I shared my articles as well as in many of the forums as well as. So I was speaking with some of I was developing networking on this especially. So I had quite a few conferences which I attend when I have some time. Then believe me, out of the interest on this, I started doing my doctorate as well. So I was really, really impressed the way we are articulating and touch basing within each and every piece of the technology, mostly.
Alrighty. Well, listen, thanks so much for joining us. This has all been really interesting. And the more I'm looking at it, I'm glad experts like you are out there, because I'm not sure I'd want to or even be able to deal with something like that. But it is very valid what you bring up, because there is so much out there that still runs a surprising amount. You would never guess that much code is still running on stuff that was written in the 70s and 80s. So, well, thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. Talk to you guys again.
So let me ask you guys a question on using computers. Gretchen, when was your first desktop home micro that you used?
Oh, what brand?
What kind? Yeah.
It was an Atari.
An Atari ST, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And Bill, I believe yours was a Commodore VIC-20, right?
Yep.
Okay. So let's say today you had stuff that you wanted to pull off of either of those computers. In the case of Bill, your Commodore would probably be on a cassette tape, although they did have disk drives, but it'd probably be on a cassette tape. Gretchen's, yours would be on a 3.5-inch floppy. What if you
in a completely different language? It was
different
a different
language, different format, and modern computers don't even have a disk drive usually, much less a tape drive. And so this is the kind of things that they're dealing with, being able to pull over these systems. And believe it or not, there's a lot of stuff still on this: banking, insurance, other things he spoke to a little bit, but we still see the old mini and mainframe stuff around in a lot of different cases. I'm just wondering how we would do that. It's interesting, Bill, in your case with a cassette, you probably have to find a tape player somewhere, which you can do, play it onto an MP3 or your phone or something to get it digital, and then play that back into the computer with some kind of a decoder.
Do you think that would work?
Yeah, it would work.
Oh. Okay.
When you use virtualization for running the old platforms and you load off a tape, that's how you do it now, is with an MP3. So, because you're just playing an audio file, basically, analog or digital, it doesn't care as long as it can read it. Gretchen, yours is a little more complicated because you can't do that with a floppy disk. And while there are USB 3.5-inch drives for the PC that you can get, at least I think you still can, you're looking at a different situation because, like you say, the formatting is completely different. So this is an issue, and it gets older computers, the more of an issue it is. Until next week, this is User Friendly 2.0, keeping you safe on the cutting edge.
User Friendly 2.0, copyright 2013 to 2026 by User Friendly Media Group, Incorporated. All rights reserved. The content is the opinion of the show's participants and does not necessarily reflect this station or platform. Requests for material use, interviews, disclosures, and other correspondence may be viewed and submitted at userfriendly.show.